Hi, very good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for your feedback on the first vlog, which I posted around 10 days back. And I promise you that I'll get you 52 more vlogs on different technologies covering data protection, data availability, data recovery, compliances, and manageability layer, right? Which is basically also called observability layer nowadays on cybersecurity, more often used. Then we talk about orchestration layer on the enterprise management, which is basically your infrastructure, IT, IoT management, and all. So things are getting more and more interesting, and more topics coming in, and the AI has made it even more interesting. However, today is going to be focused on laptop and desktop backup recovery. Why laptop desktop backup recovery? Relatively easier topic going on for the last 25 to 28 years, which at least I've been dealing with. So I remember in 1998 selling the first copy of backup for laptop and desktop, which was very interesting to a very large automobile Japanese conglomerate, and brings back the old memories. So I'm going to get into a little deep dive. So please pardon me if I'm getting a little technical. However, I'll try to simplify as much as possible. Interestingly, so I'll cover this into three basic part, little advanced and a little more on the enterprise side and so on. So I assure you, stay tuned. It's going to be more of a storytelling rather than technology selling, right? So though I've been doing selling for the last 33 years, so I'll not apply those jargons out here, I promise you. But once again, thank you so much. Let's get started. There are 15 bullet points. I don't think I'll take more than 12 minutes to cover all of them, right? So please bear with me if I'm going a little off track, but I'll try to get you good input insight into it. So traditionally, when we used to talk about laptop and desktop backup, it was more limited to a software which would do a backup on premise, and that's all. It won't go beyond that. That means it would not replicate it to offsite. It would not replicate on cloud. Life was not that simple. That point of time also there were constraints. However, at that point of time, I remember, and today also those softwares are relevant. Why? Those This version 1 which I sold was doing image level backup, which was able to take a complete image of the laptop or the desktop. Now, which means that it includes operating system, the office automation tool what you have, and the data on it. Now, interestingly, if the hardware failure happens, if that particular desktop brand is not available anymore, you would be this would allow you to recover on the different kind of brand of desktop or laptop even, right? So that was interesting, and still those tools are selling. And why they're relevant today? Because they pick up the entire image, and there are users who are using larger file size. We call it big data, big files, and we'll talk about all that shared file system later, and the cluster file and Hadoop and other things, distributed file size in one of the episodes, which may be a little complex, but for meant for users who are looking at definition of what is big data management. However, coming back, so that is the first level of software tool which is available in the market today also for those kind of customers, and now relevant for even marketing and other departments where there are a lot of images and videos are available. Moving on from there, then came that would you have a backup software which will do only the type of files which we define and pick up that. So basically the enterprises wanted to pick up only the word file, excel file, pdf file which are relevant for the business users and so on. It worked very well for decades, almost 2 decades it went on, and it got added with more functionality by doing multiple copies of backup across the location and on cloud and so on. So worked very well. However, as the email servers started moving from on premise to on cloud, now the mail we moved on from the traditional mail system to the cloud mail system, which is namely Office 365 and Google Suite. There were different challenges, and customers started demanding, saying that can I do a backup off cloud on cloud, and without investing anything on the premise, because the user was spread across multiple locations, and our pandemic made it even more challenging for us and kind of helped at that point of time. Now, from there, now what we're talking about is cybersecurity, manageability, and AI part getting integrated to it. Very, very interesting development, evolvement, evolution of this solution, which sounds very simple, small, but believe me, it's very relevant, because if you do a little search, you will realize that 70% of the data resides on endpoints. Now, with the mobile devices or the mobile coming in, smart devices coming, wearable devices coming in, you will have data all across, right? So it's going to be more interesting as we talk about endpoint and end users. So today we talked about image level backup, we talked about incremental file type backup, defining the file type, and then we talk about backup which is from the email, Office 365, Google and all. We talked about AI getting added, I'll elaborate a little, and cybersecurity is key because now there's so much of hack every day in the news, you read about it. So no rocket science for you. You have to be careful about it. It used to be antivirus, and the viruses we were talking about, now we're talking about even more complex thing like ransomware. So why do we need backup? I've already answered that. Now the next question comes in: what needs to be backed up? What are the policies? What are the key things what you need to consider while evaluating a backup software? Where it needs to do a backup? Now here when we talk about all this, we're talking about 3-2-1 policy which has been there for the last 2 decades. That means ensuring that you have 3 copies of the data, including the primary and 2 secondaries as a backup copy, stored on 2 different devices. That's the 3-2 part of it, and 1 copy offsite. Now, this is nothing new, believe me, this has been in the market for a very, very long time, but I'm just repeating to ensure this vlog covers everything what you're looking for. While we were talking about this, what is that we need to consider while doing a backup? Ensure there is a strong amount of encryption available in the backup software while the data is moving from the primary source, which is your laptop desktop, to the secondary, the target device where the backup is going to be stored, and the network being used has to be all encrypted, and the data kept on the device on the other side should be completely encrypted, safeguarded from not accessible to any user, only to the authorized person who has the access control rights. Last not the least, integrated with multi-factor authentication. Now that's part of the cybersecurity. Why? Because it should not happen that the password got stolen or copied pasted somewhere, and anybody has got the access control of that. So no longer limited to just password and the username, right? It goes beyond that. Now moving up, since we're talking about cybersecurity there and the encryption and all, let me cover this also. So cybersecurity, there are now leading organizations globally which are giving you observability while you're doing backup on premise, and they replicate that onto the cloud. And when we talk about on premise backup, they're giving you object storage, air gap storage. I'll cover a little bit about it in a few minutes from now, and I'll have an elaborate topic covered for 15 minutes in next few weeks from now. However, there are software now available which are doing backup of Office 365 laptop also onto a object device on premise with a air gap built into it, creating multiple copies in the disk in case of the disk failure, no longer dependent on RAID only, and having a replication functionality onto the cloud, which the cloud is completely controlled under the observability with SOC 24/7 monitoring, and they ensure if there is a corrupted file, it is isolated, not recovered. They alert, and this AI, generative AI, comes into picture, alerting the admin. And here I'm talking about the manageability layer also. The admin saying that there is a problem, there is a corruption, there is an attack onto this file, so you have to make alternative arrangement or ensure there is another copy created of that. Interesting, right? So that is where I'm covering the laptop desktop backup. So once you do the laptop desktop backup on premise, traditional way, picking up the files, all the folder or the volumes or the image of the laptop, having encryption, having an object storage on premise. You can do backup on NAS also, you can do backup on SAN also, you can backup as low as you can do a backup on USB connected drive also. If you're a home user, don't need to worry about the object part of it. You can actually do it with basic encryption and a disk backup, and this is also encrypted, right? And it's in your control. However, if you lose it, those are chances of somebody breaking in. But that's where I'm stressing on a point that be careful about it. That there's a fair amount of encryption and access control given into it, so that there is a recovery password also. Now, while we're talking about, it should offer you compression, it should offer you deduplication, it should offer you network throttling. That means it should be able to break up the packet. Let's say you got a 10 MB file, it should be able to break it up into small chunk and then push the data. There are for 2 reasons. Why? The file size becomes smaller, it automatically does that. You don't have to worry about it, and it travels through the network to the target device comfortably, not choking your network, allowing you to do more business critical activities also alongside. and replicating that onto the cloud. So while the compression, deduplication, network throttling, packet breaking is happening, it helps you move the data quickly, smoothly to the other device, other site, or the cloud part of it, whichever way you want to set up your strategy of backup. Please ensure keep testing your recovery. Why are you investing? Why are you doing all this? To meet the compliances, to meet business continuity, to ensure there is recovery when you need it. And testing the recovery is most important. Remember the RPO, RTO, recovery point objective, recovery time objective. So these are the two factors. Little technical for certain set of people, but please bear with me. So recovery point objective, which point did it back up, and recovery time is how much time would it take to recover back. So please ensure that 3 to 1 policy, cybersecurity. If there is AI into it, nothing like it, because AI is going to help you tell you that the backup done is good enough for a recovery, and when you recover it, will it be readable? Will it be usable? Will it meet the business requirement? Will it deliver to the customer what the customer is looking at? Will it give it to the channel partner, and so on and so forth, right? So depending on the department, right? If it is supply chain management, production department, they have a different requirement to meet. Of course, it should meet all of it. Now, when we talked about recovery, we should not miss out on the functionality called discovery. Why? Because when you're doing backup of, let's say, 100 user, 500 user, 2000 user, 10,000 user, what happens is, even if we talk about 200 GB in 2000 user, we're talking about terabytes of data getting backed up. Simple mathematics, 200 GB can become a humongous task for the device to manage it, and that these devices where you're investing should be scalable enough, right? As I said, there are object storage available. Is the object storage scalable to that level of your growth in the next 3 to 5 years, or maybe more? Because what happens is, once you put the device, it should not happen that you have to replace the device after 6 7 years, because suddenly it's announced end of life. Now there are very very good devices where you can just plug out the module and plug in the new module hardware comfortably. I'm using word module, bear with me, but it works, right? So it's just a hardware device which you're plugging it out, it maintains the continuity, you plug in the new one and it continues, right? So keep in mind all those. So we're talking about encryption, access control, multi-factor authentication. Once the data is backed up on the other side, we're talking about observability, isolating, inoculating the data, ensuring that it is not, like recovered and again spreads across, right? So those are smart services which are available now at the back. And the AI part, predicting that your storage is going to be full in so many months, looking at the traditional way of growth. And it of course does a lot of machine learning, and it is more generative AI than rather than the traditional based predictability. Here it also tells you that the data which has got backed up is not good enough for recovery, right? So that's where the AI component coming in, predicting there could be a cybersecurity attack because of certain reasons, right? So that's the best part which is happening in today's world. When we talk about all this complexity, what comes to your mind? How expensive? The best part is that all these solutions are now cost effective, they're scalable, and they are secured. Of course, different organization would have different kind of requirement. I personally have come across or sold in my 30 years of career, starting a software range of 3,000 rupees to 6,000 rupees, and now with the devices which are easily available from 10 lakh rupees. In other word, if we want to talk about 10 to 12,000 dollars, which is object storage on premise, having replication feature, and to another device on the other side, and you would be able to build up your DR with object storage for less than 25 lakh rupees, right? If you're talking about enterprise. But if it is an individual personal user, it's a different discussion to have, right? But here, let me just take a step back, summarize what I talked about. First, what needs to be backed up? What are the things what you need to consider, including encryption, compression, deduplication, incremental backup, full backup, type of data, 3 to 1 policy, cybersecurity functionality built into it, AI built into it, discovery part of it, where to backup. When we say where to backup, the discovery be the search of the files of data. Because if the user has left and you are looking for any kind of commitment which has happened on the mail, you should be able to discover it. So this is in nutshell my summary of understanding of backup and recovery for laptop desktop. Remember, 70% of the data resides on laptop and desktop backup. As we are moving forward, cybersecurity, AI are must, and the manageability compliances are key to our success. Stay tuned for more and more coming in. Next week, I'm going to talk about high availability business continuity. In a nutshell, I'll touch upon hyperconverged infrastructure. Hope you enjoy this session and looking forward for the next one. Thank you.